Okay, trustees, we are live. We are recording. Phone lines are open. Go for it.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the regular meeting of the East Hampton Town Trustees for September 9th, 2024. I'd like to open with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Flag, United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Arlene, can you do roll call, please?
Here.
Here.
Megan Catalano.
Here.
Patrice Dalton.
Here.
Ben Dollinger.
Here.
Tim Garneau.
Here.
Jim Grimes.
Yes.
Celia Josephson.
Here.
And William Taylor.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, public comment. Matt, do we have anybody on the phone lines?
You have 0 callers. Thank you.
All right, we'll start then with Eric Brown and Scott DeBriner on behalf of Farmhouse One.
Thank you. My name is I was going to say, my name is Eric Brown.
Many people want to be me, Scott, but only I can.
Oh, boy. Sorry. My name is Scott O'Briner. I am with Inner Science. My official title is Senior Environmental Planner and Landscape Architect, and I am here with Eric Brown of Lenny Ackerman's office. He is our project attorney.
I have no official title.
You're a project attorney.
Okay.
So, we were here before you about 2 years ago to present the exact same proposal, and there wasn't any objection from the town trustees at that time. Since then, we have obtained village ZBA approval for the revetment, and just for the benefit of the trustees that are new, I'll just go through it very, very quickly. It's unique in that the revetment, it's an existing revetment, and it crosses 3 independent properties. This one's the project sponsor. This property is owned by the village, and it has a revetment that is clearly deteriorating. Just the air photo superimposed upon it. In 1992, the DEC approved the revetment that spans all 3 of these properties. They approved it at the same time with one application. This is the stamped approved plan. This is the Rayner property. It actually says Rayner Residence on it. This is the village property, which has an access right-of-way for it. There's a little trail, and sometimes it's frequently used. I can't remember stairs ever being there, but people just can't kind of climb up and down the rock revetment. And this is 75 West End Road, and this is 69 West End Road, which kind of just kisses into it. We're not proposing anything different than what's already there. Maybe a little higher, but not, the footprint itself is exactly the same. We did a series of 4 test excavations prior to the proposal being developed, just to see what the structural integrity of the revetment was. The witnesses to those excavations included representatives from the village, representatives from the trustees, our engineer, our coastal consultant, and various other people. And at that time, it was determined that the revetment is kind of collapsing back upon itself. It wasn't built, this is 2013. The revetment is essentially falling back, and it's reducing itself in elevation. It was never technically what we say an engineered structure. It was just built with rocks. It doesn't have filter fabric. So that's why it's failing. Interestingly, and the Rayner revetment, which was built at the same time to the exact same specifications, that's been rebuilt 3 times since 1993. Our client's revetment hasn't been rebuilt once, so that's why it's in bad shape. These are the engineering plans for the revetment. I'm not going to go into the detail on that, but what is pretty cool about this revetment is that within the village right-of-way, this is my suggestion, I'm taking the credit for this one, there's going to be steps built into the revetment which help you get down. The reason for that is we've worked on the Rayner revetment the Rayner site for 25, 30 years. Sometimes during periods of storm, you can't get down to the beach. Sometimes I have to park at the Appoquog parking lot and walk all the way down the beach in order to get to the site, which is about a mile. With these steps, we'll be able to get to the beach. And so will emergency vehicles if there's a surfer in danger or whatever. I think it's a good thing.
Or people who want to fish.
Yeah,
Getting
yeah.
between there and the pond.
Yeah.
I mean, that's.
Scott, to be clear, this is not a vehicular access. This is only
God,
a
no.
pedestrian access.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
No.
Path is a little.
I mean, we're in front of you tonight, guys. This is a shameless attempt to get the DEC to pay attention to us because we've spent, when we first came in front of you, you very reasonably asked us to, to get some input from the DEC, and we've been waiting, and we've been waiting, and we've been waiting.
And
So,
I think at the time, this is 2 years ago, we had told you guys then, hey, listen, why don't you guys go and get DEC, come
And
back
Village.
to.
We have
and
Village right
and
now.
Come back to
So
us.
I will
give,
give you here our 11 copies of the Village ZBA approval, which they approved with no change in conditions.
Have you heard anything from the DEC?
Pardon?
Have you heard from the DEC at all?
We've heard from the DEC. They're doing their typical song and dance.
for technical comments.
And for instance, I'll give you for instance. They don't like these stairs. They don't like them because they think
It should be a raise.
they think that the stairs are going to interfere with the transport of sand to the east and west. However, we're proposing a dune restoration over the stairs. So 90% of the time, the stairs are going to be covered. The only time you'll be able to use the stairs is during periods like this, which is when, during an emergency purposes, the stairs will come in really handy. So we're dealing with some arguments that the DEC that we think that we can get past. However, it certainly would be helpful if we had the town trustees permit, and we haven't given them the village ZBA approval yet. That just was approved in June, I think.
Yeah.
So if we give them the DEC, if we give the DEC the village permit and the town trustees permit, it is our hope that we can get past the DEC's reluctance on this matter. We can't build it without all three. So if you give us a permit, ZBA has given us a permit, and the DEC doesn't, we can't build it. But hopefully, with your permit, we can gang up a little bit on the
And to the
DEC.
extent, guys, that your council wants to add in language into the permit that basically says it does not come into force until you guys have confirmed that all the permitting conforms to each other. I mean, at this point.
That's pretty much standard.
Yeah, okay. I mean, what we want is another piece of paper to wave at the DEC to try to get them to to at least move it forward.
It took 18 months for the DEC to even respond for the permit application we submitted.
When was the last Rayner permit granted by the DEC, and what was the length of that process?
With respect to a dune restoration or the extension or
Said it was-
modification of the revetment itself?
Rebuild of the revetment.
I have that information. If you want, I can.
I mean,
It happened 3 times.
yeah.
They extended it to the west. They rebuilt it twice. They added more elevation.
But you and I have been working on that, putting sand there for at least 10 years.
Oh, yeah, well,
And in that time period, they've never touched the rock because the rock.
No, yeah,
So it
absolutely.
has to be greater than 10 years since the last time.
Oh, absolutely. It's 15 years, actually. It was 1996, 7, maybe. It was before we started doing a dune restoration on the Rayner property just about every year.
But as you guys know, she's very, very attentive to the face of, and that's probably why the revetment underneath is so structurally sound, is because, as you know better than anybody, we're, not me anymore, but Scott, we're in front of you right away to put new sand on there, as soon as the thing is exposed. I mean, she's required to because there's a covenant, but, nonetheless.
There'll be one on this one, too.
Yeah, there'll be one on this.
Can we go back to the DEC's concern about the stairway? Is there any data or any modeling that you have done to show that that is not the case?
It's going to be covered with sand 95% of the time. 18 inches of sand minimum.
I think probably, Patrice, see, DEC is very used to issuing permits for a raised wood walkway. In fact, the house that you guys did is at this property?
We did it, we've done it with Mrs. Rayner, and we've done it at, I think, 199 Lily Pond Lane. We
Yes,
came
that's
to
the
you
one
guys.
I'm
to do
most
that.
familiar with.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
we're actually proposing a wood walkway, wood elevated walkway.
But Patrice, to get to that point, this is what the DEC is used to seeing. What's going on right now is DEC staffed is almost universally new people that really are not used to reviewing projects like this. So the minute something deviates from what they've seen the 2 times that they've done this, they really don't know what to do with it. They can't find anything in their brief history to address. 2 years ago, these guys had come to us. The initial thought was this village-owned property. These 2 revetments weren't quite connected, and logic says they should be connected so that there is no weak point to wash out. So when Scott came here 2 years ago, the presentation included the proposal to basically stabilize that village property, which the village was very much on board with because they were getting something that there was no cost to them. Both of the adjacent property owners were getting a stronger, better installation. I think honestly, this is one of those things, I don't have any compunction about saying, listen, this is the thing to do. We're not asked, these are not new permits. This is an existing structure that is being asked to be replaced in place in kind with the raising of the top of the revetment, which has become a standard on all of these applications in the last several years. So,
Scott, can you go back to the drawing?
I think the buried stairs are a great idea from a safety standpoint for public access. If there's, a lot of people utilize the jetties down there. If, first responders need to get down there and that's all dug out and there's a steep cliff and those stairs are the only way to get up and down.
There's been so many times that Mrs. Rayner has called us up and said, there's no dune anymore. And you get there and there's 30 feet between the top and there's no way to get down to the bottom.
Yeah. And if the cut's open and the only way to get there.
This will allow you to get down there.
What material is this stairs made of?
stone.
Oh, it's stone. It's granite.
Okay.
It's cut block, and it's being basically in the shape, in an L shape, and then they just put it right on
The
top of each other.
sidewall's solid?
Pardon?
The sidewall is solid? Well, it would be because there would be a third.
Yeah, on the sides it would be rock,
Right.
standard rock, and then the steps are just
So I'm just
basically
trying to figure
square
out how
blocks.
they figure that's going to change the
Yeah, I don't
drift of the sand.
understand
That
that.
was my question too. Did they describe to you how they felt that was going to
No.
impact?
No, see, that's just it. It's just they just basically
Well,
say,
in their defense, it also took them some time to understand that the village parcel was involved. We had to go back a couple of times for them to understand that, yes, in fact, we know one of these is owned by a municipality. Our guy is willing to do that. It took some, so that in and of itself was a little bit novel, at least in their universe,
So in essence, these stairs are sculpted into the revetment.
yeah.
Has the village weighed in with the
They like it.
DEC on the staircase and how it would be advantageous to a public service in a way?
Well, I don't know if they've weighed in specifically, John, but they did, they held their, we needed to go to the ZBA to get an approval for this project. So in that context, all the stuff is routed to the appropriate people. I don't know that we could get the village to say, we think this is a public safety thing that you absolutely must pay attention to, but it just seems to sort of be a common sense issue, and they didn't object to it at the ZBA level, and I certainly would expect they would have if they had an objection to it. So.
And as far as you know, this is the only reason this is being held up?
This is part of why we're in front of you, is we'd like to try to get them to, if there are other comments or there are other things that they want us to, rather than sitting for 18 months, and waiting and occasionally
And
getting
your
something.
village permit is only a year permit.
Right, exactly. I mean, all we're hopeful for is that adding your permit to the list will
inspire them to
inspire
respond.
somebody, and maybe it doesn't do anything. I have no idea, but, we're kind of out of ideas as to how to sort of, extract something meaningful out of them, whatever that ends up being.
No, I don't see anything to object to from the trustee's point of view.
And you said that 2 years ago, and I appreciate you saying it again. It's the same thing all over again, except this time I really would love to ask you guys to vote on it tonight, so we have something to send back to the DEC in addition to the village approval.
Would it make sense to comment on the stairs within the language of the
I think it
permit?
might make sense for the
think you could
village too. I
comment
don't know
in
about the
you could
trustee.
comment in the language of the permit. The permit would read that it's contingent on the DEC and any other agencies' permits. But I do agree with the applicant here that this is not something new. It may be new. Scylla and I had a good conversation today about it. Some members of this board are not familiar with the project, but I think it was pretty well vetted when Scott presented the last time. Nothing's really changed. If there's no other questions, I'd make a motion that we approve this.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you very much.
Aye.
We'll let you know what.
Good luck.
Yeah,
Thanks. Come on, Scott.
thank you so much. It's,
Now we get to go
That
talk to the
helps.
DEC some more. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
although the contact at the DEC is probably gone now.
Right.
And that's how it's been.
Wow.
I appreciate this board very much.
Thanks, guys.
No problem.
All right.
Scott, maybe reach out to the ambulance crew.
That's
maybe
theirs.
Yeah.
letter of
Yeah,
recommendation.
we will absolutely.
What
was the question?
Maybe the village ambulance, the ambulance guys would want to weigh in and say, someone hurts themselves down on the beach, getting up and down those stairs would
Sure.
be helpful.
Let's
we'll-
wait till we have all three approvals.
Well, to Francis's comments, maybe
Broach that
Allison, to Francis's comments regarding the safety issues of those steps and knowing the history of this property, maybe we could include that in the dialogue of our permit as to the whys. Maybe that'll help you guys out.
Thanks very much, Doug.
It's in the project narrative, I believe, correct?
It is.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
Have a good night. All right, move on to new business. Scallop season, town code changes. John, you take a minute?
The office got a communication from one of the town attorneys late last week. I guess David Lease has requested the town attorneys to look into modifying the scallop season language in the code because it caused a problem last year. I guess maybe the town didn't modify the dates, and I guess the town code language prevailed. We modified the dates to reflect, what usually takes place, which is the season opens a week after the state season opens. So there was a difference in opening for the different harbors. So I communicated back and forth a little bit with the town attorney and suggested some language, and he suggested some language. And I just wanted to read you basically both blurbs and see what the board thinks before I get back to the attorney and say this is how the trustees feel the language should go. So his suggested language was, scallops may be taken during a specific period, the beginning of which shall be determined by town trustee resolution, and the end of which shall be March 31st. And the language that I suggested was, scallops may be taken from sunrise on the first Sunday following the state opening date until sunset on March 31st, which kind of avoids us having to do a resolution every year, which is our interest here. Tim Treadwell, Francis Barley agree that our suggested language should prevail. So I just wanted to throw that out to the board and get an opinion on how I should get back to the attorney.
Makes sense to me.
Was it, beginning is the first Sunday
The
after
first
opening?
Sunday after the state opening. The state opening has been the first Monday in November for quite a few years now.
Okay.
So we will open the following Sunday. There's no dredging on weekends, so that would give hand harvesters a day to harvest before the dredgers got going with their boats. And that's been our practice typically.
Yeah, sounds specific enough, I think.
And that would, anytime the state changes their date, our date automatically applies based on that language.
We put that week in there to give the local harvesters a chance to participate in the state opening out in the bays and everything. And then a week later, have the locals, be able to go on our harvest.
I'm sorry, I don't follow that. So,
When the state opens, the local baymen can go into the state waters and do, for the
okay.
first week. They get the first week when it's good. And then the local waters open up, and that's restricted only to local people. So it just gives the local people a chance to benefit the state opening and the local.
that makes sense.
Any comment on it? Chris, you're good with the language?
Yeah. I'm on the motion on it, follow and chime in as need be.
John, do you want to make a motion on
I don't think we need a motion. I'll make a motion that we suggest the language that I suggested.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So we're adopting this to our own season anyway, so.
The town code will now reflect what
Right.
our practice has been for several years.
But John, I think you added a little more clarity when we were speaking about it before that maybe wasn't added to the rest of the board just now, which was by opening on that next Sunday, dredging is not allowed on Sundays regardless. So by opening on that Sunday, that allows the locals by hand to go in and have that one Sunday before the dredges move in locally on Monday. Is that correct?
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Does that make sense, Patrice? I know I was kind of questioning it too, but it gives one day of getting scallops by hand before dredge season locally.
Or they're all gone.
All right. Old business, mosquito larvae survey, September 2nd and 3rd.
You went out on Monday, and I went out Monday. Celia went out Tuesday. We found very few larvae. It was very dry.
Much drier.
And as a result, there was no treatment that week. The next possible date would be next week. Tuesday is the full moon next week. And evidently that moon will be that moon tide will be the highest tide of all the moon tides this summer season. So Vector Control doesn't think that we'll need to go out because the weather's cooled to the point that mosquitoes won't be a problem. But since it's going to be an extremely high tide, and since there's been a case of Eastern equine encephalitis found up the island, we may be asked to go out, but we may not.
So if it's a really high tide, wouldn't that flush out the larvae?
Well, no, I mean, I think what happens is the high tide will flood the marsh and allow water to enter into the pools that the eggs may have been laid in. So you might find more larvae as a result. Yeah, we did have a storm during before one of our walks, and the tide, it was a high tide plus a storm surge, and that washed the marsh out. But a typical high tide, even a high tide, shouldn't really flush the marsh.
Too bad.
And we have blue-green algae bloom update. That should be pretty much done.
Yeah, I guess probably, yeah. Yeah, on the 28th, there was a count of 399.5. This is Wainscott Pond. August 28th was a count of 399.5. September 4th was 494.1. Wainscott Pond is still going strong. On the August 28th, Pond Lane again in Lionhead had a count, 93.7. And also on that date, Fort Pond South, which I believe is the state access area, was 30.9. So there's still some bloom going on in Lionhead and the lake, or the pond in Fort Pond. That's it.
Thanks, John.
Committee reports. Accabonacock Creek, we have a request from Lisa Foyer of Twin Forks Permits to close out trustee permit number A1-24 issued to Stephen Germain, 75 Water's Edge. This is the one where we sent them a letter notifying them of rebar that was showing through the sand.
So they submitted photographs and a description of how they remediated the rebar with a water jet. And he did remove the pieces of the rebar and he disposed of them. Because the first reply was that wasn't really rebar.
Really?
Yeah, she wrote an email saying that it wasn't there before, but apparently it was. So now I think it's removed, and I would recommend closing out this permit.
Second.
Do you want to see the photos?
You sent, yeah, we saw the photos. You sent them around, I think.
We emailed some photos with the rebarb gone.
What
It
about,
was actually sitting on top of the beach, yet haven't been removed from, yeah. Yeah.
this is the rebar.
The committee sent
Right.
Yeah,
photos
they
to
cut it and then it was just still laying there, right?
No, they used a water jet to get it out.
It actually pulled the whole piece out.
So they did it, it looks pretty clean after that. Yeah, that's great. So that, I think that's it. And they went out immediately and took care of this.
That's good.
All in favor?
All right.
Okay. And Peconic Estuary Partnership, informational update.
Yeah, it's really related to what John just described with the mosquitoes and the water getting stuck. So we had the stakeholder meeting recently, a couple of weeks ago, to kind of get the project back on track, because it's been in dormant state for a couple of years now, while they sought funding. And they brought the people, they had the people online from Woods Hole, and kind of just went over like some of the concerns. And one of the major problems right now is to identify the site where they will conduct this work. So they did they have the hydrologists and what they want, what they're looking for in terms of a site. And then they have the practical matter of finding sites that they can access, that they're looking for town-owned or,
I thought that they had already picked a site a few years ago. No,
I thought they would have picked a site by now, but evidently
they had two.
No, but you remember the meeting where I thought that this looks like the best spot, and I thought that was a done deal.
They
So did
had,
I. Well, I didn't think it was a done deal, but you're right, they were leaning in that
they had
direction.
two sites that they were looking at. One was kind of like if you walked down Edwina's place, you went out. And then another one was down off of Old Stone Highway. There's a driveway that goes out, it's public land. And they like that one too. But now, they had the town query all of their data, the ownership data of property that the town owns. And then they found another piece of land that might be interesting, but the easements on almost all of these pieces of land have scenic easements on them. And the text, whatever is the condition of the easement, could actually.
Yeah, the language of the easement may.
Right, as if it says you can't remove any peat, you can't remove any soil.
Hey, you need a referendum almost to
Yeah.
change that.
So that's where it is, and I'm hoping they resolve this.
Okay.
Actually, Patrice is going to track down the copy of the video of the meeting. So
Yeah.
I wasn't able to go to the meeting. Maybe you could send it around
I
to the
will.
whole board if anybody else interested in looking at it to see all the details on this.
There was a sort of a little ad hoc discussion towards the end of the meeting about using dredge fill to kind of bring up the levels in certain places. And I don't know, I forget the word they used to categorize it, but they weren't adverse to it. So might end up being Plan B.
Could be an opportunity for environmental dredging of, non-beach compatible dredge materials.
We brought this up to them before. We're doing sediment samples in the area in case, it looks like
Yeah.
that might be an option.
Yeah, so I went through the notes I had from the first iterations, and first meetings that we had. And they were concerned about the size of the culverts. There's 2 culverts. One is from underneath Teak Lane into the harbor. And then another one is the one at Pussy's Pond. So they apparently,
Pussy's are the ones Jerome.
no, Pussy's Pond.
Yeah, I think these are culverts, well, Teak Lane these are culverts from, well, one's from Pussy's Pond, and then at Teak Lane, there's like a marsh on the other side of the street.
Yeah.
And there's, interaction between the harbor, a ditch to the harbor and that marsh. So I think it's like
Yeah.
culverts under the roads as
Yeah.
opposed to the culvert to the bay.
So they did take measurements of both, and they haven't released any findings on that.
Well, the culvert from Pussy's Pond under the road is being reconstructed. It's being worked on, let's put it that way.
Renovated.
Renovated, yeah. That's a town project, and some of the invasive species removal aspect of it is going to be funded by CPF water quality funds. But the actual reconstruction of the culvert and the reinforcement of the bridge around the culvert is going to be a town bonded project.
So that's the update on the PEP.
Thanks.
Okay. David, you want to talk about the clam contest?
Yeah. 3 weeks from now, the largest clam contest. It's going to be the biggest and the best of all time. Adults and kids, we encourage youth to get involved, 5 and older. Get your clam rakes and get out there. And you can drop your clams off the week before the event. You can look at our website at all the different local seafood shops, and it's gonna be a lot of fun, a lot of food and activities and music, and a lot of free food and some good stuff, good merchandise. So please tell everybody and come on down to the largest clam contest at the Amagansett Life Saving Station Museum, September 29th, the last Sunday. And check out our website for any details or call the office.
And the time of the
It's
event?
12 to 3. Yep. So
It's a good write-up in the press.
there was a good article.
Yeah.
So
Some of the kids asked us the ice cream free.
I know. So lots of good prizes for the largest clams in all the different harbors. So hopefully we'll have nice weather.
Do we know who the judges are for the
We
chowder?
do, yeah, we do. Huey King is going to be one of the judges.
Ann Welker.
Ann Welker,
Oh.
or
Nice.
Geraldine.
I'm so sorry.
Celebrities.
Aquaculture.
Oh, Marie?
Valenti.
Yeah, Marie.
Sorry, thank you.
Marie. Like, yeah. So we got some real top-notch experts coming in to judge. Those are the chowder judges. So you can have either New England or Manhattan clam chowder. So there's
Depends on what they bring.
depends on what you bring. Yeah.
It'd be one overall
Prize or
winner.
2?
2.
One for each.
That's for you guys to
We have prizes. One year we did cookbooks. We have prizes for.
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Okay.
So winner for each category.
Okay.
Francis, can I bring 2 things up?
Yep.
One is, has anybody been down and checked out the culvert at Gerard Drive lately with the graffiti?
Yeah, Yeah.
Okay,
But it's town property. The town needs to take care of that.
okay.
I think
Well,
they told Marine Patrol to
They're aware of it.
Okay, the solution, I had a conversation with Steve Lynch. The solution there really, you can't get the paint off of concrete because it
Right.
bleeds into it, is to paint it. Whether the town paints it, whoever paints it, I'll talk to Steve about it. Paint it, and then any future graffiti can be removed. That was one thing. The other is,
Is the paint gonna hold up on that? It's been there for a long time. It's
No.
no,
impregnated
it's a
with
good
salt.
question. That's a very good question, John, and I think we're all
worse
gonna
than the
find,
Yeah, well,
we're all
it-
gonna
it-
find out. We're all gonna
Need-
find out. Francis here was a professional
Needs to
painter.
be sealed. It'll work.
Okay.
You could break it.
Perhaps in his retirement, he might be interested in
Put in a bid.
a side project, such as painting the culvert.
I want to open the culvert.
Okay. So anyway, the other thing is if anybody's been over to Georgia Pond, it is closed. But that pond, as we all know, stayed open for a very long time this summer. In the process, it migrated way over to the west side towards Georgia Association. And even though it's closed right now, there is still a dog leg left over from the old, what was the old channel that was running out. What I would like to do between the end of this month and when we open it is go down there and grade that beach and fill that hole in.
Yeah.
My concern is this, one of the time, right after we closed ourselves, it reopened in a storm. My concern is if it reopens in that same spot, which it will, because it's already cut mostly through, that it's going to create a hazardous situation for Georgia Association, and I'd rather be proactive on that. And the other is I've been asked to leave the pond closed until at least the beginning of November, which is fine with me right now. The water quality numbers are good. The water level, although it is high, it's not super high down there. But I think I'm a little concerned about that one dog leg, so.
Well, with hurricane season here, we're better off doing that grading sooner than later.
Yeah,
Is
So
that
how soon can you
grading,
do it?
that's not gonna be on our property, right?
it will.
Partially.
Let's not discuss that, John, please. Okay, that just complicates this. I think it's gonna be our responsibility, and I'm sure that
I don't think
Georgia
there'll be any
Association
resistance.
is not going to have an
Oh,
issue.
I had to get permission to put a sign up over there.
Yeah, I took the friggin' sign out too.
This was a couple of years ago.
Okay, because actually the sign where I took it out was on our property.
Yeah, well, I put signs up over where people go crabbing,
Yeah.
and that wasn't our property, and I had to
You had to,
get the dispensation to do that.
okay, well. I don't see.
You don't want to anger the neighbors, that's
I don't see any issues there. In fact, actually, my concern is the neighbors will be angry if we don't address it.
Would, just throwing out a question here, would there be any possibility that we don't bother to open it until the sand?
Well,
Dredging
I've been,
takes place.
no. Can I tell you what my concern, John, is if we get a storm event where it breaches on its own, it's gonna breach all the way over on that west side, the way it is now. I'd rather,
I'm not saying okay, we grade it, now we have.
then we leave it, then we leave it.
But
We
is
might,
there any
we might
possibility of
leave it.
leaving it
We don't
till
want
the
to miss a
dredging?
traditional
we
opening.
might leave it. We'll see.
We don't want to miss a traditional opening,
Okay, well,
ever.
Okay, yeah, I
Okay, well,
got it.
we're gonna delay our traditional.
That's
opening
fine.
just
We don't want to miss it, though.
Call it traditional opening.
Whatever we want to call it. Tomato.
Payment of the bills. East Hampton Marina, $303.47, and I have a couple that you guys don't have. East Hampton Marina, $134.25 for fuel. Montauk Marine Basin, $630.17 for fuel.
I make a motion to pay the bills.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Go ahead.
Minutes from May 31st, June 24th, July 8th, and July 22nd. Anybody have a chance to read any of them?
Yes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All of them?
4 months, yes.
Okay.
Good man.
All in favor?
Aye.
And financials ended June 30th, 2024, ready to be reviewed.
I have them. They're definitely in order. We also, I don't know if you all had a chance to look at them,
Oh, okay.
but we also have the report from,
I have that separately.
okay,
I'd like to make a motion to accept the financials
Second.
ending in
in favor?
June 30th, 2024.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the trustee audit, you all received a copy of that. Has anybody reviewed it besides Patrice and I?
I took a look at
You
it.
just handed it to me.
just a helpful hint is if you read the town report, the town financials, and then ours is sort of like an insert into that, you know, it's kind of helpful if you really want the details.
Okay.
The only comment I have is they, in the introduction, they said trustees are elected for 2 years. In our
That's
report,
going to have to change next,
Yeah.
but for the year that was done, that was the case.
it was 23, yeah,
So
correct.
this year, we're going to have to change that too. So we don't have to approve these, we just have to vote to accept them. So when you guys are ready, we'll present this again. Just take a look at them. All right, anybody have anything else?
Yeah, I had a couple of things. I've asked the researchers who are doing the fisheries study off Beach Lane to give a presentation. We've been expecting this for half the summer.
Yeah.
But finally, I hope I finally got them to agree on the meeting of October 18th. So I thought that they were going to be
Which is
ready
October
last
14th.
meeting and then this
Yeah,
meeting,
did they change that
October
date?
18th,
That's a holiday, so that meeting, that's Columbus Day.
Friday.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's the
I
14th.
just put in the holiday schedule.
Oh, the meeting's 18th, right, sorry.
Friday the
14th is, sorry.
Okay.
And I got a notice, I've gotten a notice, and I got another one today.
That was for you.
There's a horseshoe crab work group meeting Thursday, and I looked at the list of recipients of the email, and I was the only one on it, so I
No,
don't
I
know.
got it.
You got it too?
I got it too, and I was a little perplexed because we're doing the horseshoe crab thing with cooperative extension, and this was from PEP.
Yeah, this is some kind of a work group they trying to put together, or they put together. I'm not sure what it is.
Do they currently do a study of their own?
No.
Do they participate?
I think most of the people on the list of recipients are
I
participants.
mean, PEP, do they
I don't-
participate?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It's not just PEP, though.
Yeah, but it's up in, it's not a Zoom thing.
It's
up
at
the island.
Suffolk Community College. Yeah, I didn't see a Zoom link.
Yeah,
And I can send it to everybody, but I
I'd like to see it.
specifically
I didn't-
wanted to find out if either of you guys had received it. You
I did
didn't
not.
see it. I'll send it to everybody.
Thanks.
It doesn't look like there'll be a Zoom component to it. It's a bad time, Thursday, 10 o'clock, 10 to 1, middle of the day.
because I'm not doing anything.
So,
Maybe there's a summary after we get
I'm sure there will be.
Yeah.
And have we responded to or sent a letter about the horseshoe crab?
Well, I was thinking about that while I was driving up here today.
I was just going to ask that.
When is the,
We would have to touch base with Assemblyman Thiel's office and find out when they're going to send that to the governor. Now, I think they're back in session soon, but I can do that tomorrow. I call.
If you can. That'd be great.
Yeah, I was just thinking of that today. I was like, when I saw the big horseshoe crab in the sky, it was Scorpion.
I had a little back and forth, email back and forth with a representative of a local environmental group that asked me what I thought the collective impression was from the trustees. They were being asked to send a letter of support to this. And I kind of, said I had reservations about the Baymen especially being the only group that was really going to get it in the neck with this thing, and how, I was a little concerned that other considerations hadn't been taken into account, possibly, reducing the harvest by local Baymen, questioning whether other causes might be addressed, loss of habitat, that kind of thing.
Good points.
But it was just the back and forth, so I don't know. I mean, I think these are things we discussed here. I think, I feel if we do respond to, the governor, we should be a little circumspect about how we, feel this prohibition is maybe, other things should be considered.
Do we want to send a letter to the governor?
Yeah, you're supposed to. That was on me. Sorry. I was goofing off from that.
Yeah, I'll let you know tomorrow with
I
it.
was thinking about the graffiti. What it was going to take to paint that culvert. All this time, Francis knew exactly what needed to be done.
Anybody have anything else?
Yeah, I was just gonna remind you guys, I'm on the Nature Preserve Committee, so I'm going to the meetings. So if you guys ever want me to reach out or talk to them about anything, just let me know.
Do they know anything about graffiti?
It doesn't really come up at those meetings.
Graffiti.
We should go to one every 2 years. The same topics are on the agenda.
Have to get an urban nature preserve committee and send me the
Yeah, right.
All right. Anyone else?
Just graffiti over graffiti.
Motion to close?
Second.
Favor?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.